On Sunday, the 6th of July, 2025, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi stood before a crowd of reporters in Durban. Dressed in his Special Task Force combat uniform, flanked by armed guards, he dropped a bombshell that would shake South Africa to its core. "I will die for this badge," he declared, his voice cutting through the humid afternoon air. "I will not back down." What followed wasn't just another press conference. It was a declaration of war, not against criminals on the street, but against the very people sworn to protect the nation. The KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner was about to expose a conspiracy that reached into the highest corridors of power, a conspiracy of murder, corruption, and betrayal that would bring down a minister and launch the biggest police scandal in South African history. But to understand how a decorated officer came to stand against his own government, we need to go back. Back to where the blood first started spilling in the streets of KwaZulu-Natal. The year is 2018. South Africa is drowning in political violence. In KwaZulu-Natal alone, bodies are piling up. Councillors, activists, witnesses, shot in their driveways, ambushed at stop signs, executed in broad daylight. The murder rate for political figures has exploded by 108% in just a decade. These aren't random crimes, they're assassinations. Precise, professional, and terrifyingly common. The government knows it has to act, so they form an elite unit, the Political Killings Task Team, multi-agency, well-funded. Their mission: hunt down the assassins terrorizing South Africa's political landscape. By 2024, this unit has investigated over 600 murders. They've made hundreds of arrests. They've recovered weapons linked to political crimes across the country. But here's where our story takes its first dark turn. In late 2024, the task team starts uncovering something bigger than isolated hit jobs. The trail of blood money doesn't just lead to local gangsters or hired guns. It leads up, way up, to serving politicians, to police officers, to prosecutors. According to their investigation, they've stumbled onto a syndicate, a criminal network that has infiltrated the very institutions meant to fight it. Then, suddenly, the plug gets pulled. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, a powerful ANC politician and former KwaZulu-Natal premier, orders the unit disbanded. His reason? It's not yielding results. The timing couldn't be more suspicious. Just as investigators are connecting drug cartels to members of parliament, just as they're preparing to make high-profile arrests, the entire operation gets shut down. But that's not the worst part. In March 2025, something even more chilling happens. 121 case files from the Political Killings Task Team vanish. They're seized from the unit's offices and transported to Pretoria, where they're archived, shelved, buried. Among those files, 5 with explicit arrest warrants already issued. The suspects named in those warrants, they're never pursued, never arrested. They simply walk free. This is where Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi enters our story. Mkhwanazi isn't your typical police officer. He's a warrior cop who joined the South African Police Service back in 1993, just as apartheid was crumbling. He's climbed the ranks through sheer determination and an iron-fisted approach to crime. By 2011, he's a lieutenant general. By 2012, he's briefly acting as National Police Commissioner. His reputation? Brutal efficiency. When construction mafias terrorize building sites, holding workers at gunpoint, stealing diesel, demanding 30% cuts of project budgets, Mkhwanazi leads the raids himself. When gang violence explodes in KwaZulu-Natal townships, he's on the front lines in tactical gear. He's controversial, sure, some call him heavy-handed. But in a province where criminals operate with near impunity, where police corruption is an open secret, Mkhwanazi represents something different, something dangerous to those profiting from the chaos. By 2024, as Provincial Commissioner of KwaZulu-Natal, Mkhwanazi starts noticing patterns, cases disappearing, investigations stalling whenever they get too close to powerful figures, orders from above that make no tactical sense. Then comes the disbanding of the Political Killings Task Team, a unit he knows is making real progress. The general starts asking questions. The answers he finds will put a target on his back. The confrontation begins in March 2025. A crime intelligence operation in KwaZulu-Natal leads to arrests of senior police officers. It's a drug bust, but the implications run deeper. Suddenly, Minister Mchunu files a complaint with the Independent Police Investigative Directorate against Mkhwanazi. The accusation? Overreach, abuse of power. Many see this as retaliation. The IPID investigation goes nowhere, dropped amid public outcry. But the battle lines are drawn. On one side, a provincial commissioner who refuses to play ball. On the other, a police minister with connections that run deep into South Africa's political underworld. The tension builds through June. Mkhwanazi watches as construction mafias continue their reign of terror. 745 extortion cases nationwide since November 2024, with only 240 arrests. He sees the pattern. Whenever investigations threaten to expose the network at the top, they get shut down. Files disappear. Witnesses vanish. Justice gets buried under bureaucracy and fear. Then comes July 6, 2025, the day Mkhwanazi decides he's had enough. Standing at that podium in Durban, wearing his special task force uniform like armor, Mkhwanazi doesn't mince words. He names names. Minister Senzo Mchunu, Deputy National Commissioner Shadrach Sibiya. He accuses them of orchestrating a massive cover-up, of protecting a criminal syndicate that has infected the police service like a cancer. The syndicate is involved in drug trafficking, he tells the stunned reporters. They're behind political assassinations. They've infiltrated our ranks from top to bottom. He reveals the seized case files, the buried investigations, the connections between drug cartels and serving politicians. He talks about Brown Mogotsi, a businessman and political ally of Mkhunu who somehow had access to sensitive police information. He exposes how Mkhunu first denied knowing Mogotsi to Parliament, then later admitted they were comrades. The response is immediate and explosive. Sibiya fires back, calling Mkhwanazi a criminal and a warlord. Mkhunu denies everything, demanding Mkhwanazi present his evidence on a proper platform. The political establishment circles its wagons. But the public? The public believes the general. Within days, social media erupts with #HandsOffMkhwanazi campaigns. Opposition parties, the DA, the MK Party, the EFF, demand immediate action. Citizens launch fundraising campaigns, humorously pledging 2 cows in the traditional Zulu way to support the whistleblower. For many South Africans, exhausted by crime and corruption, Mkhwanazi represents something they'd almost given up on. An honest cop willing to risk everything for the truth. On July 13th, President Cyril Ramaphosa is forced to act. In a televised address, he calls the allegations a grave national security concern. He places Minister Mkhunu on special leave and announces a judicial commission of inquiry headed by Acting Deputy Chief Justice Madlanga. It's a victory, but everyone knows this is just the beginning. The story of the Mkhwanazi scandal isn't just about one brave cop taking on the system. It's about a country at war with itself. South Africa battles one of the world's highest crime rates, 5th on the Global Crime Index. Corruption has infected every level of government. In KwaZulu-Natal, the legacy of political violence stretches back decades, from the ANC Inkatha conflicts of the apartheid era to today's assassination economy. The numbers tell a horrifying story. Political murders up 108% in a decade. Construction mafias disrupting hundreds of infrastructure projects, costing the economy billions. Drug cartels operating with seeming immunity. A World Bank study estimates crime cuts South Africa's GDP by 10%. But behind every statistic is a human cost. The activist shot for speaking out, the businessman forced to pay protection money, the community terrorized into silence. This is the context in which Mkhwanazi made his stand. A context where taking on corruption doesn't just risk your career, it risks your life. Even within the police force, opinions are divided. Forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan blasts Mkhwanazi's approach as dangerous grandstanding. He argues that going public without presenting evidence first undermines the rule of law. Others worry that the scandal will deepen factional divides within an already fractured police service. But for many rank-and-file officers, exhausted by seeing their investigations sabotaged and their colleagues corrupted, Mkhwanazi is a hero. Police unions call for his protection. Veterans demand real investigations rather than persecution of the whistleblower. The Commission of Inquiry begins its work, but already the intimidation has started. Anonymous threats, political pressure, the machinery of cover-up grinding into motion. Everyone knows that in South Africa, commissions can be delayed, findings can be buried, and witnesses can disappear. Meanwhile, the crimes continue. Another councillor shot in his driveway, another construction site held hostage, another drug shipment moving through ports controlled by corrupt officials. The syndicate Mkhwanazi exposed doesn't stop operating just because it's been named. If anything, it becomes more desperate, more dangerous. Some draw parallels to past scandals. They remember Jackie Celebi, the former National Police Commissioner convicted of corruption, who once ran Interpol while taking bribes from drug lords. They remember the Scorpions, the elite anti-corruption unit disbanded when it got too close to powerful politicians. The pattern is always the same. When investigators threaten the network at the top, the investigators become the target. But something feels different this time. Maybe it's the brazenness of seizing 121 case files. Maybe it's the image of a decorated general in combat uniform saying he'll die for his badge. Maybe it's just that South Africans have finally had enough. The commission continues its work. Mkhwanazi remains in office, protected by public support, but knowing that every day brings new dangers. The officials he named maintain their innocence, their lawyers preparing for a long fight. And somewhere in those archived files in Pretoria, the names of killers who should be behind bars gather dust. This isn't a story with a neat ending. Not yet. The commission hasn't reported its findings. The accused haven't faced trial. The syndicate Mkhwanazi exposed hasn't been dismantled. In South Africa's battle against corruption, victories are rare and often temporary. But perhaps that's what makes Mkhwanazi's stand so significant. In a system designed to silence whistleblowers, he spoke out. In a culture of complicity, he chose confrontation. Whether he succeeds or fails, whether he's vindicated or vilified, he's already achieved something important. He's shown that someone in power is still willing to fight. The question now isn't just what happens to Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. It's what happens to a country when the people meant to protect it become its greatest threat. When the line between cop and criminal blurs beyond recognition. When justice itself becomes a casualty of corruption. In the end, this scandal asks the most fundamental question any democracy can face. Who watches the watchers? And what happens when the answer is nobody? The war between Mkhwanazi and the system continues. The blood keeps spilling in KwaZulu-Natal streets. The construction mafias keep extorting. The drug cartels keep operating. And somewhere in South Africa, another whistleblower is weighing whether to speak out or stay silent. Because in a country where telling the truth can get you killed, silence isn't just golden, it's survival. But as Mkhwanazi showed on that July afternoon in Durban, sometimes survival isn't enough. Sometimes you have to stand up, put on your uniform, and declare war on the darkness. Even if it means you might not live to see the dawn.